The annual Williams family dinner, an event I dreaded for the past 5 years. Every year, the same mahogany dining table, the same judgmental stares, and the same question: when are you going to get a real job, Emily? I adjusted my simple black dress as I walked into Morton's Steakhouse's private dining room. Dad had been having his success dinners here for 20 years, ever since he became Senior VP at Global Dynamics Corporation. The maitre d' nodded in recognition, not because I was William Williams' daughter, but because I owned the restaurant chain. Not that my family knew that detail yet. "Emily, darling." Mom's voice carried that familiar note of forced cheerfulness. "We were just discussing Jennifer's promotion." Of course they were. My younger sister Jennifer, the golden child who followed Dad's footsteps into Global Dynamics. She sat there preening in her designer suit, engagement ring catching the light, everything about her screaming corporate success. "Sorry I'm late," I said, taking my seat. "Business meeting ran long." Dad scoffed. "Business meeting? Is that what you call those little internet projects of yours now?" The waiter approached with wine and I noticed his slight smile. He knew who I was, the owner of not just Morton's but half the luxury restaurant groups in the country. Another detail my family would discover soon enough. "Actually, Dad, I was in a board meeting." "Board meeting?" Jennifer laughed. "For what?" "Your online startup." Mom jumped in, ever the peacekeeper. "Now, Jennifer, I'm sure Emily's projects are very interesting. Though, darling," she turned to me, "Mrs. Henderson's daughter is hiring at her law firm if you'd like a real career opportunity." I took a slow sip of wine, a vintage from my own vineyard in Napa. "I'm good, Mom." "Good." Dad's voice rose slightly. "You're 32 years old, living in that small apartment, driving a basic car. That's not good, that's settling." If only they knew that small apartment was actually the entire top floor of the building. And that basic car was a custom-made electric vehicle from my own automotive company. "William," my father's colleague James Porter, joined us. "Did you hear about the big announcement tomorrow? Rumor has it we're getting a new CEO." Dad straightened his tie. "About time. Ever since old man Phillips retired, the board's been dragging their feet. I've been running my division practically solo." "Any idea who it might be?" James asked. "Has to be internal," Dad declared confidently. "I'm actually meeting with the board tomorrow. 15 years as Senior VP, it's about time they recognized my contributions." Jennifer beamed. "Does this mean you're up for CEO, Daddy?" "Well, nothing's certain, but..." He puffed up slightly. "Let's just say I've been preparing for this opportunity." The waiter returned with appetizers. "Compliments of the house," he said, giving me a knowing look. "How thoughtful," Mom smiled. "William must be a very valued customer." "Actually," the waiter began, but I caught his eye and shook my head slightly. "Not yet." Dad turned back to me. "See, Emily? This is what success looks like. Your sister's climbing the corporate ladder, I'm up for CEO, and what are you doing? Playing with computers." I checked my phone, 3 messages from my executive team. The press release was ready. The board votes were confirmed. Everything was in place. "I'm running a company, Dad." "Ha." He actually laughed. "That little website business of yours? That's not a real company. Global Dynamics. That's a real company. 100 billion in revenue, offices worldwide, that's success." Jennifer chimed in. "Daddy's right. It's time to grow up. I could probably get you an entry-level position in my department." "That's very kind of you," I replied, my voice steady. "But I'm good where I am." "Where you are," Dad's voice dripped with disappointment, "is nowhere. Can't even get a real job. Your sister's getting married to a senior executive about to make VP herself, and you're what? A wannabe entrepreneur." Just then his phone rang. He glanced at it, the board's number. "Excuse me, this is important," he said, standing. "Yes, this is William Williams." "Sir, the new CEO wants to..." "No, but it's my family dinner." "Yes, sir, I understand." The color drained from his face as he listened. "Emily," he said slowly, lowering the phone. "Why is the board asking me to report to conference room A right now? To meet you." I stood up, smoothing my dress. "Because, Dad, that little website business of mine? It's called Phoenix Technologies. We just acquired Global Dynamics. The board voted an hour ago." The silence that fell over the table was absolute. Jennifer's fork clattered against her plate. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. That's impossible, Dad whispered. Phoenix Technologies is a multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerate. They're the ones who've been buying up companies worldwide. They're mine, I finished for him. I founded it 6 years ago, right after you told me I was wasting my time with computer games. We're worth $218 billion now. And yes, we just bought Global Dynamics. The press release goes out at midnight. The waiter reappeared, this time with a different demeanor. Ms. Williams, your executive team has arrived. They're waiting in the private lounge. James Porter had gone pale. You're the Phoenix CEO? The one they call the Shadow Queen, because no one knows who owns the company. Was a secret, I corrected. Until now. Dad's phone was still in his hand, board members waiting on the line. His dreams of becoming CEO had just shattered, because his useless daughter already owned the entire company. But this was just the beginning. The real shock would come when they learned exactly what else I owned. The private lounge at Morton's had transformed into an impromptu board meeting. Through the glass walls, I could see my family still sitting at the dining table, shell-shocked. Jennifer hadn't touched her $200 Wagyu steak, a cut I'd personally added to the menu last year. Ms. Williams, my CFO Michael, approached with a tablet. The acquisition documents are ready. Would you like your father to sign them now or at the office tomorrow? Dad, who had been summoned to the lounge, stared at the papers in disbelief. These show Phoenix owns 87% of Global Dynamics. Actually, I swiped through the tablet, we own 100% as of 10 minutes ago. The remaining shares were just purchased through subsidiary companies. I turned to Michael. How's the stock responding? Up 47% on rumors of the acquisition. Tomorrow's announcement should push it past 80%. Jennifer had followed us into the lounge, her designer heels clicking on marble floors I'd had installed during last month's renovation. But you live in that tiny apartment. You mean the penthouse? I smiled. The one that takes up the top 3 floors of the Williams Tower. I paused, enjoying her confusion. Oh right, you probably didn't know I bought that building too. Along with most of the downtown real estate portfolio. Mom appeared at the door, her perfect composure cracking. Emily, darling, why didn't you tell us? Tell you. I pulled up a video on the lounge's wall screens. Like when I tried to tell you about my first company at Christmas 4 years ago. Let's watch that moment again. The security footage played clearly our family Christmas dinner, where I'd attempted to share my success. Dad's dismissive laugh. Mom's patronizing smile. Jennifer's snide remarks about plain businesswoman. That company? I pointed to the screen. It sold for $4.2 billion 6 months later. But you were all too busy discussing Jennifer's promotion to junior manager to notice. Dad sank into a leather chair, his face ashen. The board meeting tomorrow has been moved up to right now, I confirmed. Global Dynamics is being restructured, starting with senior management. Jennifer stepped forward, her confidence returning slightly. Surely you won't fire your own father. No, I agreed. Dad keeps his job, but not his title. I turned to my father. You'll be reporting to Division Manager Chong starting Monday. Your office is being relocated to the 3rd floor. The 3rd. He couldn't even finish the sentence. He was losing his corner office on the 50th floor, the office he'd bragged about for 15 years. Don't worry, Dad. Your salary remains the same. Consider it daughter's privilege. The screens switched to live feeds from Global Dynamics offices worldwide, all now part of Phoenix's empire. My empire. Ms. Williams, another executive, entered. The Gates Foundation is on the line about the AI healthcare initiative. Bill Gates. Jennifer squeaked. No, I replied, echoing her years of condescension. Melinda. We're collaborating on revolutionizing global healthcare access. I took the call on speaker. Melinda, yes, everything's proceeding as planned. The neural interface trials were successful. Yes, I can fly to Seattle tomorrow. Mom clutched her pearls, the fake ones she wore to impress her social circle. You know Melinda Gates? Know her? Emily's her daughter's godmother, Michael commented, not looking up from his tablet. The tech world's most powerful women all vacation together at Ms. Williams' private island. Private island? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. The one you mocked as a waste of money when I mentioned buying it last year. I reminded him. That you probably thought I was joking. Just like you thought my little computer games were a joke. The waiter appeared again. Ms. Williams, the Prime Minister's office is calling about the quantum computing facility. Jennifer's fiancé, a mid-level executive at Global Dynamics, had finally joined us, his face pale. Quantum computing? But that's classified government. Welcome to Phoenix Technologies, I cut him off. Where those little internet projects Dad mocked are actually revolutionizing global technology. Speaking of, I turned to Michael. How's our space division performing? The lunar base construction is ahead of schedule. NASA wants to move up the Mars colony timeline. Dad's legs gave out completely and he slumped deeper into the chair. His daughter, the one he'd dismissed as useless, was building colonies on Mars. But the real shock was still to come. Because tomorrow's press release wouldn't just announce Phoenix's acquisition of Global Dynamics. It would reveal everything else I owned, including, "Sir," the waiter addressed my father. "Will you be keeping your standing dinner reservation here at Morton's?" "Of course," Dad replied automatically. "I've been coming here for 20 years. You'll need to check with the owner," the waiter smiled. "Though I'm sure Ms. Williams will let you keep your table." And that's when it finally hit him, his favorite restaurant, his standing reservation, his special table. All belonged to his useless daughter. The night wasn't over yet. As if orchestrated by fate, the private lounge's TV automatically tuned to the evening news. The headlines scrolling across the bottom made my family freeze. Breaking. Phoenix Technologies CEO identity revealed. Emily Williams, 32, named world's youngest female trillionaire. Trillionaire? Jennifer stammered, her engagement ring suddenly looking very small. The official announcement wasn't supposed to be until midnight, I sighed, looking at Michael. Forbes jumped the gun, he apologized. They're running a special edition. You're on the cover. The magazine was already being displayed on every screen in the lounge. There I was, photographed in my real office. A sprawling penthouse suite atop the Phoenix headquarters. The headline read, "The Silent Queen. How Emily Williams built a $1 trillion empire while her family thought she was failing." "Your net worth," Dad said, finding his voice, "is more than the GDP of most countries?" "Actually," Michael interjected, checking his tablet, "with today's stock surge, Ms. Williams' personal worth exceeds the combined GDP of 157 nations." Mom had to sit down. But at Christmas you said you couldn't afford a new car." "No, Mom. I said I didn't want a new car. The basic car I drive? It's a prototype from Phoenix's automotive division. Worth about $4.7 million. We're releasing it next year. It can fly." "Fly?" Jennifer's fiancé squeaked. "Among other things," I smiled. "That little internet project Dad mocked last Thanksgiving? It was the AI system that runs the car. The one that just got approved by every major government worldwide." My phone buzzed. The president was calling. "Not the company president. The president." "Yes, Madam President. The quantum defense system is online. Yes, the AI integration is complete. No, the Chinese haven't figured it out yet." Dad's face went through a series of emotions as he realized his unemployed daughter was casually discussing national security with the President of the United States. "Emily," Mom tried again, her voice small, "why keep all this secret? Why let us think that I was a failure?" I finished for her. "Because you never asked. You never listened. When I tried to tell you about my first patent, you were too busy planning Jennifer's office shower. When I attempted to discuss my AI breakthroughs, Dad was too focused on his own promotion." The screen switched to live feeds of Phoenix facilities worldwide, quantum computing centers, AI research labs, aerospace facilities, and yes, that lunar base Michael mentioned. "Ms. Williams," my assistant entered. "The Space Force General is waiting to discuss the Mars defense grid." Jennifer's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. "Mars defense? Oh yes," I nodded. "Those computer games Dad laughed at? They're protecting our Mars colonies now." Speaking of protection, I turned to Michael. "How's our military contract performing?" "The Pentagon just doubled the order. They're calling your AI system the biggest advancement in military technology since nuclear weapons." Dad's tie suddenly seemed too tight. "My daughter, My daughter controls everything, I finished. Those government contracts you were so proud of at Global Dynamics? They're all through Phoenix now. In fact, I pulled up another document. Global Dynamics has been surviving on contracts I threw your way for the past 2 years. I was keeping you afloat until I could complete the acquisition. Mom's perfect makeup couldn't hide her shock. You were saving your father's company? While he was mocking my career choices, yes. I stood up, walking to the window overlooking the city. See that skyline? Phoenix owns 40% of those buildings. The rest. I smiled. We'll own them by next quarter. Jennifer, trying to salvage something, spoke up. But I'm still VP of Marketing. We're VP of Marketing, I corrected gently. Global Dynamics Marketing Division is being absorbed into Phoenix's operations. But don't worry, I'm not firing you. You're being reassigned. To where? She asked, fear creeping into her voice. Our Antarctic research station. I hear it's lovely this time of year. Dad finally stood up, his legs shaky. Emily, we never knew. Exactly, Dad. You never knew because you never cared to know. Every achievement, every success, every breakthrough, you were too busy with your own small victories to notice I was changing the world. The screens now showed Phoenix's stock price soaring as news of the acquisition spread. Global Dynamics, Dad's precious company, was now just a tiny subsidiary in my corporate empire. Oh, and Dad, I added, watching him flinch. That corner office you're so proud of? I'm turning it into a janitor's closet. Symbolism, you understand. The final blow came when my secretary entered with a stack of magazines: Time, Forbes, Fortune, Business Week. My face was on every cover with headlines like, "The Future is Female," "Emily Williams' $1 Trillion Revolution," and "How One Woman Secretly Built the World's Largest Company." Your father's standing reservation at Morton's, Michael reminded me. Should we keep it? I pretended to consider. Well, since I own the restaurant, and the building, and the entire restaurant group, I suppose we can let him keep his table. Family privilege. As my executive team prepared to leave, I turned to my stunned family one last time. Next family dinner will be at my place. You know, that small apartment you mocked? The one that takes up 3 floors of the city's tallest building? The building that, by the way, used to be called Global Dynamics Tower.
I stared at my phone, reading the group chat messages that I wasn't supposed to see. Someone, probably my stepsister's assistant who still felt sorry for me, had forwarded screenshots of their private conversation. Marcus, meeting at 2 p.m. tomorrow to discuss the Phoenix acquisition. Boardroom A. Emma, should we invite Olivia? Marcus, why would we? She's not real family. Emma, true, she'd probably just embarrass us anyway. Remember that disaster with the Johnson contract? Marcus, lol, when she actually suggested we consider employee benefits, a major. I set my phone down on my desk, my real desk, in my private office on the top floor of the Phoenix Group's headquarters. Outside my window, Seattle's skyline glittered in the morning sun, but I barely noticed it. I was too busy thinking about how perfectly their exclusion played into my plans. For 3 years, I'd hidden my identity as the founder and CEO of Phoenix Group, one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country. The business media called me reclusive, mysterious, brilliant. My step-siblings called me a failure who'd never amount to anything. If only they knew. The story really began 15 years ago, when my father married Catherine Walsh, a wealthy widow with 2 picture-perfect children. I was 17, still grieving my mother's death, when I suddenly gained a stepmother who saw me as an inconvenience and 2 step-siblings who treated me like an unwanted houseguest. Marcus and Emma Walsh had everything. Trust funds, private school educations, guaranteed positions in their father's company, Walsh Technologies. I had a partial scholarship to State University and a determination to prove myself. You really should consider community college, Catherine had said during my senior year, her voice dripping with fake concern. Walsh Tech needs administrative assistance too, you know. But I had other plans. While my step-siblings partied their way through business school, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through computer science and engineering programs. While they posted photos from their European vacations, I was learning to code, developing the algorithms that would eventually become Phoenix Group's foundation. The disaster with the Johnson contract, they'd mentioned. That was 5 years ago when I was still trying to please them, still hoping to earn a real place in the family. I'd suggested that WashTech's new software should include better benefits for their clients' employees, health tracking, wellness programs, career development tools. Marcus had laughed me out of the meeting. 2 months later, I founded Phoenix Group with exactly that focus, human-centered technology that helped businesses take better care of their employees. Within a year, we'd stolen the Johnson contract from WashTech. Within 3 years, we'd become their biggest competitor. And now, after careful maneuvering and strategic acquisitions, I was about to become their owner. The takeover had been months in the making. WashTech was vulnerable. Their outdated practices and focus on profit over people had left them struggling in the modern market. Their stock was dropping, their clients were leaving, and their board was desperate for a solution. Enter Phoenix Group with an offer they couldn't refuse. The only condition was that the negotiations had to be handled through intermediaries. The mysterious CEO of Phoenix Group was too busy for direct meetings. My computer pinged with a calendar reminder. WashTech board meeting, 2 p.m. I'd had my assistant schedule it weeks ago, knowing my step-siblings would choose that time for their private meeting. After all, everyone knew Phoenix's CEO never took afternoon meetings. I opened my desk drawer and took out an old photograph. Me at 17, standing with my father at my high school graduation. He died 2 years later in a car accident, leaving me with nothing but memories and a family that never wanted me. Catherine had taken control of his small tech consulting firm, merging it into WashTech and erasing every trace of his legacy. She'd made it clear that his death meant the end of any obligation to me. I was an adult, she'd said. I needed to make my own way. So I did. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. Sarah, is everything ready for this afternoon? Yes, Ms. Harrison. The lawyers have the final paperwork prepared. The board has already approved the sale. They just need the Wash family's signatures as majority shareholders. And they still don't know. No one knows you're Alexander Phoenix. The media still thinks you're a reclusive male CEO in his 50s. The photos we've leaked of the real Alex Phoenix at charity events have all featured the actor we hired. I smiled, remembering how Emma had once swooned over a magazine article about the mysterious Alex Phoenix, calling him exactly the kind of powerful man this family needs to align with. Perfect. Make sure the conference room camera is working. I want to record their faces when they find out. After hanging up, I walked to my private bathroom to check my appearance. The woman in the mirror looked nothing like the awkward teenager who'd once tried so hard to fit into the Wash family. My dark hair was perfectly styled. My suit was impeccably tailored, and my posture radiated confidence. The last piece of my disguise was a pair of designer glasses, not something I needed, but they changed my face just enough that someone who hadn't seen me in a few years might not immediately recognize me. Ms. Harrison. Sarah's voice came through the intercom. The Wash siblings have arrived for their meeting. They're in boardroom A. And the camera? Live feed is running. Would you like to watch? I sat at my desk and opened the video feed on my laptop. Marcus and Emma sat at the long conference table, looking exactly as privileged and smug as I remembered. Marcus was showing Emma something on his phone, both of them laughing. I turned up the volume. Can you believe Olivia actually applied for a job here last month? Marcus was saying. As a project manager, like Phoenix Group would ever hire someone like her. Emma snickered. Did you see her resume? State University, really? I heard she's working as a junior developer at some tiny startup. Pathetic. Actually, I had applied for that job. Through a carefully constructed fake identity, complete with an altered photo. I'd known they'd see the application. Known they'd laugh about it. Known they'd never suspect that I wasn't seeking a job at Phoenix Group. I owned it. I glanced at my watch. 1:55 p.m. Almost time. Sarah, I said into the intercom, please inform the Wash siblings that the meeting will begin slightly early. And Sarah, make sure you address me as Ms. Phoenix when you announce me. I stood straightening my jacket and gathering the folders I'd need. 15 years of being treated like an outsider, of being told I wasn't good enough, of watching them squander opportunities I would have treasured. It all came down to this moment. I thought about my father, about how proud he'd been when I wrote my first computer program. About how he always said success wasn't about who you knew or what advantages you had. It was about how hard you were willing to work. Ready when you are, Ms. Phoenix, Sarah's voice came through the intercom. I took one last look in the mirror, adjusted my glasses, and picked up my folders. Time to show my step-siblings exactly what not real family could accomplish. I walked toward boardroom A, my heels clicking purposefully on the marble floor. Through the glass walls, I could see Marcus and Emma still laughing, still secure in their privileged bubble, still unaware that their world was about to change dramatically. Sarah stood ready at the door, her face professionally neutral despite knowing what was about to happen. She'd been with me since the beginning, one of the few people who knew my true identity. "Shall I announce you?" she asked quietly. I nodded, thinking of all the times they'd excluded me, dismissed me, treated me as less than them. The memory of their laughter fueled my confidence. Sarah opened the door. "Mr. and Ms. Walsh? Allow me to introduce Alexandra Phoenix, CEO of Phoenix Group." I stepped into the room, watching as their expressions shifted from polite interest to confusion to dawning horror. "Hello, Marcus. Emma." I smiled, channeling Catherine's elegant condescension. "Shall we discuss the future of Walsh Technologies?" The silence in boardroom lasted exactly 12 seconds. I counted them, savoring each moment as Marcus and Emma's faces cycled through shock, disbelief, and finally fear. "Olivia," Emma's voice cracked. This is some kind of joke." I set my folders on the table and took a seat at the head of the conference table, their father's old spot. "No joke, Emma. Though I must say, your earlier comments about my job application were quite amusing." Marcus found his voice, though it trembled slightly. "You can't be Alexandra Phoenix. The company records, the photos in the media. All carefully managed misdirection," I said, opening the first folder. "Now shall we discuss the terms of the acquisition? I believe you're both familiar with the broad strokes. Phoenix Group purchases Walsh Technologies for $2.4 billion, retaining key assets while restructuring management." "Wait," Emma interrupted, her designer bracelet clinking against the table as she leaned forward. "You've been lying to everyone? Pretending to be someone else?" "No, I've been protecting my privacy while building one of the most successful tech companies in the country." I met her gaze steadily. "Something I learned from watching your family: appearance isn't everything. Reality is what matters." Marcus's face hardened. "Mom needs to know about this. The board needs to know." "The board already approved the sale," I cut him off. "And Catherine? She signed off on it last week. She just doesn't know who I am yet." I allowed myself a small smile. Though I'm very much looking forward to that conversation. I could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. The realization that their failed stepsister had outmaneuvered them completely. That the company they'd taken for granted, the inheritance they'd assumed was secure, now belonged to someone they'd spent years mocking. "What do you want?" Emma asked finally. "Want? I already have what I want. Phoenix Group is acquiring Walsh Technologies. That's just business." I opened another folder. "Though there are some changes I'd like to discuss regarding current management." Marcus's face went pale. "You're firing us." "Not exactly. I'm offering you both positions that better match your capabilities." I slid papers across the table. "Marcus, you'll be transitioning to Assistant Director of Client Relations. Emma, Junior Project Coordinator. Both positions come with significant pay cuts, of course, but they do include the employee benefits package you once laughed at me for suggesting." "This is ridiculous," Emma sputtered. "We won't accept." "Then you're welcome to seek employment elsewhere," I said calmly. "Though I should mention that the non-compete clauses in your current contracts will remain in effect. And given Walsh Tech's market position, you might find job hunting challenging." Marcus slumped in his chair. "You've been planning this for years, haven't you?" "Planning? No, working hard, building something meaningful, succeeding despite your constant attempts to undermine and exclude me." "Yes." I stood up, straightening my jacket. "You have until tomorrow morning to decide. If you accept the new positions, you'll report to HR for orientation at 9 a.m. If not, security will escort you out." As I turned to leave, Emma called out, her voice desperate. "Wait. What about Mom? What are you going to do to her?" I paused at the door. Catherine made her choices 15 years ago. Now she'll live with the consequences. I glanced back at them. "Oh, and don't bother trying to warn her. She's in a board meeting right now, one where she's about to meet Alexandra Phoenix for the first time." The second board meeting of the day was being held in our largest conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see Catherine sitting among the other board members, impeccably dressed as always, probably already planning how to charm the mysterious CEO of Phoenix Group. Sarah met me outside the door. "Everyone's ready, Ms. Phoenix. Would you like me to announce you?" "No," I said softly. "I think I can handle this one myself." I walked into the room, and for the second time that day, watched as recognition dawned on someone's face. Catherine's perfect composure cracked just for a moment as she realized exactly who had bought her company. "Good afternoon," I said to the room at large, but my eyes were fixed on my stepmother. "I'm Alexander Phoenix, CEO of Phoenix Group, though some of you might remember me as Olivia Harrison." The next hour was a masterclass in professional composure. I outlined Phoenix Group's plans for Walsh Technologies, the modernization of their systems, the expansion of their employee benefits, the complete restructuring of management. Catherine sat silently, her face a mask, as I systematically dismantled everything she'd built. When the meeting ended, she tried to slip out with the others, but I wasn't about to let her escape that easily. "Catherine? A moment, please." She turned back slowly, and for the first time in 15 years, I saw real fear in her eyes. "How?" she asked simply. "How did I build a multi-billion-dollar company, or how did I manage to buy yours?" I leaned against the conference table. "The answer to both is the same. I worked for it. Something you never understood. If this is about your father's company, this isn't about revenge, Catherine. It's about justice. About proving that success doesn't come from who your parents are or what last name you carry. It comes from talent, dedication, and treating people with respect." She flinched at that last part. "And now? Will you destroy everything we built?" "No, I'm going to make it better. Walsh Technologies will become a division of Phoenix Group, focusing on the employee-centered software that Marcus and Emma once mocked. Your company's legacy won't be about privilege and power. It'll be about helping people. And me?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "You'll retain your board seat, but as a minor shareholder, your voting power will be limited." I smiled. Consider it a lesson in humility. As she turned to leave, I called after her, "Oh, and Catherine, the family dinner on Sunday. I think I will attend after all." The next few weeks were interesting, to say the least. Marcus and Emma, facing the reality of their situation, accepted their new positions. They weren't happy about it, but they were learning. About hard work, about treating others with respect, about earning their place rather than expecting it. Catherine remained on the board, though she rarely spoke during meetings. Sometimes I caught her watching me with a mixture of fear and something that might have been respect. The media had a field day when my true identity was revealed. Stepdaughter's sweet revenge and Tech's mystery CEO unmasked dominated headlines for weeks. But that wasn't the story I cared about. The real story was in the changes we implemented at Walsh Technologies. Employee satisfaction scores rose. Innovation flourished. The company that had once been a symbol of corporate privilege became a model of progressive workplace culture. 1 year after the acquisition, I sat in my office reviewing the latest performance reports. Walsh Tech's profits were up 40%, largely due to the employee-centered software platforms I championed. Marcus had actually done well in his new role, once he learned to listen to clients instead of talking down to them. Emma had discovered she had a talent for project management when she actually had to work at it. Sarah knocked on my door. "Ms. Phoenix, your step-siblings are here for their quarterly review." I looked out my window at the Seattle skyline, thinking about how far we'd all come. "Send them in." Marcus and Emma entered, no longer wearing designer labels or arrogant smirks. A year of real work had changed them. "Please sit down," I said, gesturing to the chairs across from my desk. "Let's discuss your progress." As we reviewed their performance metrics and development goals, I thought about my father. About how he always said success wasn't about beating others, it was about becoming the best version of yourself. I hadn't bought Walsh Technologies for revenge. I'd bought it to prove a point, that true success comes from merit, not privilege. That the family who'd once excluded me would now work for me, learning the lessons I'd learned long ago. And maybe, just maybe, we all become better people in the process. The real victory wasn't in owning their company or making them work under me. It was in proving that the not real family member they dismissed had built something meaningful, something that made a difference in people's lives. That was worth more than revenge could ever be. The day I bought the Grand Marina Hotel, everyone thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. The once elegant riverside property was hemorrhaging money, the reviews were terrible, and the staff was demoralized. But Grace Chen, my mentor of 15 years, had believed in me enough to make me promise I'd buy it when she was gone. I'm Julia Martinez, 34, and until 3 months ago, I was the successful manager of the luxurious Riverside Royale Hotel. Now I'm the owner of what local newspapers kindly call a historic property in need of restoration. Less kind people call it a money pit. You're throwing away your career, my former boss, Richard Sterling, told me when I resigned. Grace Chen was a stubborn old woman who refused to adapt to modern hospitality standards. That hotel is going to drag you down with it. But Richard didn't know Grace like I did. She'd hired me as a housekeeper when I was 19, putting myself through hotel management school. She'd spotted something in me, mentored me, taught me everything she knew about running a hotel with both efficiency and heart. Hotels aren't just buildings, Julia, she'd often say, her eyes twinkling. They're theaters where life's most important moments play out. Weddings, reunions, farewells, new beginnings. We're the caretakers of people's memories. The last time I saw her, 2 days before cancer took her, she'd made me promise 2 things: to buy the Grand Marina when it went up for sale and to never, under any circumstances, sell it to the Riverside hotel chain. No matter what they offer, she'd insisted, her grip surprisingly strong for someone so ill. The documents in my office safe will explain everything. The combination is your birthday. I promised, not knowing that within months, I'd be selling my condo, emptying my savings, and taking out a substantial loan to keep that promise. The purchase price was lower than I'd expected. Grace's children had no interest in running a hotel and just wanted to settle the estate quickly. But the renovation costs were staggering. Walking through the hotel on my first day as owner, I could see why business had declined. The once grand lobby's marble floors were dulled with age, the vintage chandeliers needed rewiring, and the famous Riverside restaurant was operating at a fraction of its capacity. But underneath the wear and neglect, the bones of the place were still magnificent. Soaring ceilings, intricate woodwork, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. They didn't build hotels like this anymore. Mrs. Martinez? A tentative voice interrupted my assessment. Maria Garcia, the head housekeeper who'd worked for Grace for 20 years, stood nervously nearby. The staff, we were wondering about our jobs. I smiled, remembering how Grace had always said the staff was a hotel's heart. Your jobs are secure, Maria. In fact, I'm going to need everyone's help to restore this place to its former glory. The relief on her face was palpable, but something else flickered in her eyes. Worry? Fear? Before I could ask, she hurried away to share the news with the rest of the staff. I made my way to Grace's office, my office now, taking in the elegant old desk, the wall of photos showing the hotel through the decades, the vintage safe set into the wall behind a painting of the river. My birthday released the locking mechanism exactly as Grace had said. Inside were several folders, a USB drive, and an envelope with my name on it. But before I could examine them, my phone rang. Richard Sterling. Julia, my dear, his voice oozed false concern. I just heard about your investment. I felt I should warn you that Riverside Hotels is planning a major expansion. The Grand Marina's location would be perfect for our new luxury project. My hand tightened on the phone. The hotel's not for sale, Richard. Don't be hasty. The property's value is mainly in the land and location. That old building is more liability than asset. We're prepared to make a very generous offer, say 3 times what you paid. The amount he named would clear my loans and set me up for life. But Grace's warning rang in my ears. Still not interested, I said firmly. Julia, his voice hardened. That hotel is going to bankrupt you. When it does, and believe me, it will, our offer won't be nearly so generous. Think about it. After he hung up, I sat at Grace's desk, trying to calm my racing heart. Richard Sterling had been trying to buy the Grand Marina for years. Grace had always refused to sell, even when business was at its worst. I opened the envelope with my name on it, and Grace's familiar handwriting filled the page. My dearest Julia, if you're reading this, you've kept your promise to buy the hotel. Thank you. I know it seems like an impossible task right now, but you need to understand why keeping the Grand Marina out of Riverside's hands is so important. What you'll find in these files isn't just the hotel's history. It's evidence of something Richard Sterling has been trying to bury for 30 years. Something that would destroy not just him, but the entire Riverside Hotel's empire. Start with the blue folder. Everything will make sense then. Be careful who you trust. Some of our current staff were planted by Sterling years ago. They've been reporting to him, waiting for me to die so he could swoop in and buy the hotel before anyone discovered the truth. You're stronger than you know, Julia. I chose you as my successor not just because you're brilliant at hospitality, but because you have the courage to face what's coming. The hotel is your armor. The evidence in these files is your sword. Use them wisely. All my love, Grace. My hands shook as I opened the blue folder. News clippings from 1993, police reports, financial documents, and photographs spilled out. As I read, my blood ran cold. Because what Grace had uncovered about Richard Sterling and the origins of his hotel empire was worse than anything I could have imagined. But before I could process it all, a knock at my office door made me look up. Thomas Fuller, our longtime maintenance manager, stood there with an odd expression. "Everything okay, Mrs. Martinez?" Some of us noticed Mr. Sterling called. Something in his tone made me remember Grace's warning about planted staff. How long had Thomas worked here? I tried to recall, but the dates were fuzzy. "Just a courtesy call," I said carefully, casually sliding the folders back into the safe. "Welcoming me to the industry." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on the safe for a moment too long. After he left, I sat in Grace's chair, my mind racing. I wasn't just fighting to save a historic hotel anymore. I was fighting to expose a truth that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. But what I didn't know yet was that the real danger wasn't just from Richard Sterling or his spies. Because what Grace had discovered went far beyond hotel industry corruption. It reached into the highest levels of city government, and some of those people were still in power today. That night, after everyone had gone home, I carefully reviewed everything in Grace's safe. The story that emerged from those decades-old documents was staggering. In 1993, the Grand Marina had been one of 5 historic riverside hotels in the city. All independently owned, all successful, all suddenly hit with a series of mysterious accidents and health code violations. Within 18 months, 4 of them had been forced to sell to a new company, Riverside Hotels, founded by a young Richard Sterling. But the Grand Marina's owner at the time, Grace's late husband Henry Chen, had been suspicious. He'd hired a private investigator who uncovered evidence that Sterling had bribed health inspectors, paid people to plant vermin in the hotels, and even orchestrated accidents that damaged property and injured guests. More damning still were the documents showing that Sterling's initial capital had come from Marcus Reynolds, then the city's building commissioner. Reynolds had used his position to deny renovation permits to the targeted hotels while fast-tracking approvals for Sterling's company. The private investigator had compiled everything into a damning report. But the night before he was supposed to meet with federal authorities, he died in what was ruled a car accident. Henry Chen died 3 months later. Another accident, a fall down the hotel's service stairs. Grace had inherited the hotel and all the evidence, but she'd been smart. Instead of going public immediately, she'd spent years gathering more proof, building a bulletproof case while pretending to be nothing more than a stubborn old woman who refused to sell her outdated hotel. The USB drive contained recent evidence, emails between Sterling and current city officials, proof that he was still using the same tactics to acquire properties, records of offshore accounts used to hide bribes and payoffs. But the most shocking discovery was a series of photographs from the night Henry Chen died. Security camera stills showing Thomas Fuller, much younger but unmistakably him, on the service stairs just before Henry's fatal fall. I sat back, my mind reeling. Our maintenance manager wasn't just Sterling's spy. He was potentially a murderer. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring all files from safe. No police or press or accident reports from 1993 go public. Your choice." They knew about the safe, which meant Thomas must have called Sterling as soon as he saw me accessing it. I had to think like Grace. She'd survived 30 years keeping this evidence safe, playing a long game while building her case. What would she do? The answer came to me as I looked at her wall of hotel photos. In one from 1995, Grace stood proudly in front of the newly renovated Riverside restaurant, which had been closed for months after a mysterious kitchen fire. I pulled out my phone and called Maria Garcia. "Mrs. Martinez?" She answered immediately, despite the late hour. "Is everything all right?" "Maria, how long have you worked here?" 23 years. Since just after Mr. Chen died." "Mrs. Chen. Grace, she saved me, gave me a job when," she paused. "There's something you need to know." An hour later, I had the full story. Maria had been a maid at one of the other hotels Sterling had acquired. She'd witnessed one of the stage accidents but had been too afraid to come forward. Grace had hired her, protected her, and kept her statement safe all these years. There were others, Maria told me. Former staff from all the hotels Grace bought over the years. She gave us jobs, kept us close, kept us safe until the right time came. I spent the next few hours making calls. By morning, I had statements from 15 former employees of hotels Sterling had acquired, all with similar stories of orchestrated accidents and sabotage. At 9:45 a.m., I walked into the hotel's grand ballroom. Thomas Fuller was there with two men I didn't recognize, probably Sterling's lawyers. "The files?" Thomas demanded. "Right here." I held up a USB drive. "But first, I think we should wait for the other guests." "What other?" The ballroom doors opened. Maria led in a group of people, former hotel employees, all carrying folders. Behind them came a team from the FBI's Public Corruption Unit led by an agent who'd been very interested in my early morning call. Thomas Fuller, the lead agent, announced, "You're under arrest for the murder of Henry Chen and conspiracy to commit fraud." As they led Thomas away, Richard Sterling himself burst into the ballroom, his face purple with rage. "Whatever you think you're doing," he blustered, "you have no proof." "Actually," I cut him off, "we have 30 years of proof. Grace Chen spent 3 decades building an airtight case against you. Every bribe, every stage accident, every corrupt deal. And more importantly, she spent those years protecting the witnesses you thought you'd scared into silence." I gestured to the group of former employees. "These people all worked at hotels you destroyed. Hotels you acquired through sabotage and murder. They're all here to testify." Sterling's face went from purple to ash gray. "You'll regret this." He tried to sound threatening, but his voice shook. "I have friends in city government, like Commissioner Reynolds." I smiled. "Check your phone, Mr. Sterling. The story's already breaking on every news channel in the city." The investigation that followed shook the city to its foundations. Sterling and 3 current city officials were indicted on multiple charges. The Riverside hotel chain collapsed as evidence of decades of corruption came to light. But the Grand Marina, we didn't just survive, we thrived. The publicity from the case brought attention to our historic property. Grace's carefully preserved evidence didn't just bring down Sterling's empire. It proved that our hotel had been targeted because of its success and Henry Chen's integrity. We used the settlement money from Sterling's seized assets to completely restore the property. Every chandelier was rewired, every marble floor restored to its original glory. The Riverside restaurant became the hottest reservation in town. More importantly, we preserved the heart of the hotel, the staff Grace had protected all those years. Their stories became part of our legacy, a testament to one woman's courage and foresight. 1 year after Sterling's arrest, I stood in the renovated ballroom, hosting a memorial gala for Grace and Henry Chen. The mayor, the new one, elected after the corruption scandal, presented a proclamation declaring the Grand Marina an official city landmark. Maria found me later on the Riverside terrace, watching the sunset paint the water gold. "Grace would be so proud," she said softly, "not just of the hotel, but of how you handled everything. You're like her, you see the long game." I touched the jade pendant Grace had left me in her will. She taught me that success isn't just about business. It's about protecting what matters: people, principles, truth. Last week, a young woman applied for a housekeeping position. Something in her determination reminded me of myself 15 years ago. I hired her on the spot and added hotel management training to her job description. Because that's what Grace would have done. In her memory, the Grand Marina isn't just a hotel anymore. It's a legacy of justice, a symbol of standing up to corruption, and a place where news stories can safely begin. Yesterday, I found a note Grace had tucked into an old guest book. "Remember Julia, hotels are more than buildings. They're repositories of truth, witnesses to history. The Grand Marina saw corruption and survived it. Now it stands as a testament to the power of patience, courage, and playing a long game. Keep its stories safe. Keep its people safer. And never stop believing in the triumph of truth over greed. I've hung the note in my office, next to the wall of photos chronicling our hotel's history. There's plenty of room for new pictures, new stories, new triumphs. Because Grace was right, hotels aren't just buildings. They're theaters where life's most important moments play out. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, they're also places where justice finally finds its stage.